Jeffrey Canada was a young African American growing up in the South Bronx. He was poor, he was the son of a single mother. And in school as a young child, he displayed good ability, he got some good grades, but as he entered adolescence, he followed the pattern that a lot of kids in that neighborhood followed, joining gangs, stuff like that. His grades suffered as a result, and his life looked like it was going to follow the path that a lot of youth in that neighborhood did. But luck came his way. He moved into a suburb with his grandparents. He went to a high school there. His grades came back up. He actually graduated. He went on to get admitted to college, graduate, and then went on to get a master's degree from Harvard in education. Now, what is the point of this whole story? The point of this story is to make clear what I hope people will keep in mind today as I go through some statistics. That no one's life has been predetermined. No one's life has been predestined. All our futures are in our hands, and it's a matter of our willingness to do the work. The Nobel Prize-winning economist, Professor James Heckman, stated in a 2007 paper titled Skills, Schools, and Synapses that American society is polarizing. Now, what he meant by this was that while proportionally more youth in America today are graduating from college, also a higher number of students are dropping out of high school. And this in a time when the demand for skilled labor is constantly rising. It sets the stage for a problem. Today I'll be informing you on the American education system. I'll be doing it in 3 parts. The first part will be the benefits to you and me. Secondly will be about who scores what. And thirdly is what are the means for reform. As I stated before, Professor Heckman showed that the high school graduation rate has been declining for the past 40 years. And this brings me to my first point. What are the benefits of education? Now, the benefits of education. Now, according to the NCES, the National Center for Education Statistics, in a 2009 report titled Digest of Educational Statistics, they reported that a college graduate can expect to make $58,000 annually, while a high school dropout can expect to make $25,000 annually. Also, a number of other reports showed that high school dropouts report a higher incidence of health-related problems, as well as higher imprisonment rates. Now, I don't need to preach about the benefits of education to a room full of college students. My main point today is a lot to focus on the public benefits of an education to society as a whole. In a 2003 book titled Inequality in America, a paper presented inside by the economist Alan B. Kruger stated that inequality, the gap between rich and poor, is a huge problem in America, and the remedy to that is education, a stronger educational system. Now, he cited that if inequality can be lessened, we can see a reduction in crime and a better functioning democracy, as when people are better informed, they participate in our democracy. Also, we look at what is the actual cost to our GDP, the gross domestic product. The McKinsey & Company in 2008 cited a 2008 report titled The Economic Impact of the Achievement Gap, cited that if the income-based achievement gap had been closed by 1998, our GDP today would be 3 to 5% higher. That's $400 to $600 billion more than what we have today. Now, if you heard me mention the income-based achievement gap, you're wondering, what is that? Now, according to DPI.gov, the Department of Public Instruction, the achievement gap is defined as a persistent, pervasive, and significant disparity in the educational achievement and attainment among groups as determined by a standard measure. This brings me to my second point. Who scores what? What do the scores actually look like? In the same report by the McKinsey & Company, they cited that students who qualify for the federally subsidized free lunch program, often used as a proxy for poverty, on average scored 2 to 3 years behind the students who didn't. Also, they cited that 9% of incoming freshmen into Tier 1 colleges, that's the nation's most selective colleges, came from the lowest socioeconomic level. Also, a more startling report was put out by the NCCP, the National Center for Children in Poverty, in 2007, titled Promoting Effective Learning. In it, they cited that children coming from the lowest socioeconomic level often scored 18 months behind the normal rate of development at age of 4. Now, this is before children are even entering school, which states the case that we have a problem that begins before kids are even making it into school. This brings me to my third point. Seeing that since the gap begins before people enter school, we wonder, what can we do? A paper presented in the 2003 book Inequality in America by Dr. Heckman and Pedro Carneiro argued that since the gap appears before children enter school, thus the solution must be centered around the idea of early childhood intervention. programs that focus on young children, ages 3 to 4. His strongest evidence came from a project called the Perry Preschool Project, where 124 impoverished children were taken, divided in 2 groups, a control group and a variable group. The variable group received the high quality preschool and weekly home visits for 1 to 2 years. And the results were followed for the next 29 years, comparing the control group and the variable group. And the results were staggering. They found that the variable group on the top, highlighted here, had higher high school graduation rates, made more money at the age of 29, less imprisonment, less crime. And this was from just 2 years of preschool at a young age, and this is the long-term effects that it had on their life. Also, there's another experiment being conducted in Harlem, New York, and it's known as the Harlem Children's Zone. The Harlem Children's Zone was described in Paul Tuff's 2007 book, Whatever It Takes. The program is a huge program spanning about 99 blocks in Harlem, New York. They focus on combating poverty, but they allocate most of their resources towards helping children in education, helping them raise themselves out of poverty through a strong education. And the results that they're having are staggering. A 2009 report from 60 Minutes cited that the Harlem Children's Zone had been able to close the income-based achievement gap, that is the gap between rich and poor students that I mentioned earlier. They've been able to close it completely, which is unheard of in a lot of schools. Also, they closed the racially based achievement gap. And this is in a school, these are schools who draw primarily on students who come from low-income housing. And this brings me to my conclusion. If you were following along, you heard me mention the benefits of education to you and to society. Thus, knowing the benefits of education, we see that there's a lack of education, that there's a larger and larger group who is unable to compete in the workforce, and a workforce that is demanding more and more skills as time moves on. And we saw that we have solutions to move forward. Now, no one solution fits every region, as the differences in economic makeup and things of that nature would cause a difference. But we see that there is a solution, and there's things that work going forward. The Harlem Children's Zone has a saying that they often use. They say that they're not trying to help kids beat the odds, they're trying to change the odds altogether. And that is the point I hope people can see, that when it comes to education, no one's path should be littered with obstacles just because of who their parents were, how much money they made. Our path should be, the only obstacle in our path should be our willingness and determination to do the work. The accident of birth should not be a hindrance to our futures. And that's all I have.